You're listening to the ADHD Support Talk podcast. ADHD Support Talk is brought to you by addclasses.com. Visit www.addclasses.com to sign up for free webinars and workshops today. Well, hello and welcome back to ADHD Support Talk Radio. I'm your co-host, Lynne Edris, and I'm a productivity and ADHD coach specializing in helping overwhelmed professionals reduce procrastination, improve time management, and get more done with less effort so that they have more time, more energy, and even more money for what they love most. As you guys know, I'm a woman with ADHD myself, so I have been where so many of you are and where so many of my clients are, and I've come out the other side, so to speak. So I've gone from living in that constant state of chaos and overwhelm and underperformance that we all know far too well to living a life of more success and fulfillment than I once dreamed was possible. Life's not perfect, but it's managed. And, learning to live well with your challenges and with your ADHD is what I'm so passionate about helping my clients learn to do. You can learn more about me, what I do, and the programs and services I offer at www.coachingadvantages.com. And if you'd like to join my next live online productivity and time management workshop, you can text the keyword productivity to the number 33777 to find out more about the next free event. Well, today I'm excited to have with me Casey Dixon. And in a moment, we're going to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart and the clients that I work with. And that is the mysterious paradox of being a high achiever with ADHD. So welcome, Casey.
Thanks, Lynn. It's amazing to be here. I love to talk about this and I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I know you're going to speak about something that can resonate with a lot of our listeners. But first, tell our listeners a little bit about you and where they can learn more about you and what you do, that sort of thing.
I'm an ADHD coach, and I specialize in working with professionals who have high demand-ridden jobs and careers and also have ADHD. Most of my practice is focused on working with lawyers who have ADHD or professors who have ADHD. But I also run some programs for just general professionals. So you can find out more about me on my website, which is dixonlifecoaching.com. That's DIXON lifecoaching.com. I've been working with people with ADHD for 27 years. So I feel really blessed to be able to work with this population. And as I've grown in my career, I've run into this mysterious paradox of working with these incredible high achievers with ADHD, and that's really where I'm targeting my own practice and career at this point.
I think it's really interesting, and we were talking a little bit before I started the recording, that's basically, my client base as well. And the thing that's funny, as we were talking about topics and titles and all of that, is the term high achiever from a lot of my clients feels like that imposter syndrome, right? A lot of my clients, if I were to say something like, about them being a high achiever or them being successful, they feel like they're putting up, like that it's not a correct assessment of them, because the thing I always hear is, I'm a hot mess. If you could only see what it really takes to keep this stuff together, or if the world could only see what's going on behind the scenes, how hard I have to work, everything it takes to, to kind of be where I am. There's some of that imposter stuff and fraud stuff. And obviously, knowing what we know, a lot of what's going on in between their ears is part of what's getting in the way. But
yeah. Well, and I think there's a lot of that, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because there's two paradoxes really that I focus on with the people I work with. And one is that, okay, the research and the world at large is saying that people with ADHD don't have such beautiful adult outcomes. And we can talk about that. But what you brought up is that sort of inside paradox, where they're saying, okay, if I look at the outside, I have a law degree or my PhD, or I've been working as a systems architect for big tech companies, et cetera, et cetera. I have a family, I'm raising my kids. I, on the outside, look like I have my act together and I'm wildly successful. And then they carry around this inner idea of, I'm really not that successful, but I'm doing a good job at faking it right now. And I think Ari Tuckman said this one time, and I just love him, but he said, there's two steps in front of the avalanche. They feel like, okay, if somebody would just shine a light on me, they're going to see that I'm a hot mess, or that I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I just made it through one more day.
Right.
When is this going to unravel? And so the outward signs of success are there. And so, one of the things that I think you and I try to do in coaching is to mirror that back to them and say, let's sync up what's going on the inside with what's going on the outside.
Yes. That's huge, right? It's really
Yeah.
huge. I have clients, I like the avalanche metaphor because I have clients say all the time something like, I'm just waiting for something to come up and, excuse my French, bite me on the ass, or I'm just, any day now, everybody's going to figure out, that I don't really know what I'm doing, or that I really don't have it all together. And
imagine the energy
painful.
It's such a energy sucker. And it's just this, what a horrible way to go through every day. It does not have to be that way.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be that way. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about high achievers and ADHD.
Well, I used to work with a lot of different kinds of adults with ADHD, from college aged up in my practice. And a couple of years ago, I thought, I guess it was about 7 or 8 years ago, I thought, it's time for me to take this practice in a new direction. And what do I want that direction to be? And I started working with this group of they're really highly educated knowledge workers with ADHD. Right. So you've got lawyers and professors and finance people and tech people. And I tell this story that one day I had this awesome coaching day, and I felt so great about the direction that the coaching had gone, and the creativity and the intentionality of my clients. And I sat back and I had this warm coaching glow, and I looked at the list of clients and I thought, holy moly, every single person that I talked to today has an advanced college degree at the PhD level. Like, I don't have that. They're way more educated than I am, and they all have families and they're raising kids. And I thought, what is going on here? That these are people who are really defying those research predicted adult outcomes with ADHD. Right. And so, because you and I know from reading a lot of that, it can be pretty heavy stuff.
Absolutely.
And I think it still resonates with these high achievers with ADHD, because, like you said, they're afraid that's going to be them any minute. Right. We know that little kids with ADHD are predicted to have lower educational attainment. So for the people that I'm working with, about half of the adult population right now is predicted to have a 4-year college degree. If you throw ADHD into the mix, that drops from 48% to 15%. Wow. That is a huge plummet in terms of adult educational achievement. Absolutely. If you go to a graduate level degree, it's less than 1%. Wow. For ADHD. And in the general population, it's around 5.5. So it's still a small little group, but think about how hard our people had to work, our little ADHD kiddos, to get through school and to achieve that kind of success. And of course, everybody's talking about health this last year and this year because of Russell Barkley's study on life expectancy. Right. And how health not so good in terms of adult outcome for ADHD. I think one of the things that I've seen, and I don't know if you've seen this with your group, but long-term health is one of the first things that gets sacrificed for my clients. Right. On the altar of working harder. Yes, absolutely. And so they're not sleeping, and they're not eating well, and they're not exercising as much as they'd like. They don't have a mindfulness practice, and they, all those kinds of things. They hyperfocus and forget to eat or get up and use the bathroom, for crying out loud. So, and that's because health emergencies are way not today for them. Right, right. And the current emergency is get through the day, survive today. So we see a lot of really sort of damning adult outcomes. There's greater incidence of substance abuse. There's greater incidence of incarceration and arrest, lower income, and getting fired more often. This is an interesting statistic as well. About 51% of people with ADHD have been fired. Wow. That's a lot, half.
It's a lot. And some of us more than once, right?
That's right. Yeah. Very often more than once. Right. And so performance issues on the job can be part of that. And so I'm sort of sitting there back on my glorious coaching day, feeling like, hey, this is awesome, going, wait a minute, what is going on here?
Right.
Really fascinating. So
That's interesting. I did a consultation with someone yesterday who asked me, she said, I know I'm smart. I am nowhere close to achieving my potential. What is it that makes some people with ADHD able to achieve so much and some of us barely able to get by on a day-to-day basis?
mhm.
It's a
Well,
big
and
question.
going
I
back
didn't
to
have an answer. In the moment, I was like, oh, that's a good question. Let me think about that.
yeah, let's think about this together. And I think, the real key is that what's going to help, and you obviously know this because this is what good coaches do, but what is going to help her to take a step, towards what her definition of success and
Right.
her glorious outcomes are. But in general, because I've been working with this population for about 15 years exclusively, I'm sort of starting to find these little patterns of, life story or approach or what is really going on with them. And so I found a couple things that help them to defy these negative adult outcome expectations. And I think the most important one is the first one, which is that high achievers with ADHD have unique talents or very specialized interests. And, we've all seen them in the media. We've got the, Simone Biles and Michael Phelps of the Olympians.
Mhm.
These are people who have dedicated an inordinate amount of time doing the thing that is their unique talent or their unique interest. Same thing with musicians and actors and famous CEOs and, these kinds of folks. And then I thought, well, where does that leave the rest of us? Because I don't know about you, but I'm no Olympian,
Right, right.
it's a little bit challenging, and I'm not a rock star either. So I think really what's important here for those of us who don't fit into that I'm a rock star category is that, the people that I work with have really targeted their energy and their time toward the things that are their greatest area of skill, but also their greatest area of interest. So whether it's the law or it's medicine, and the rest of that, the ADHD brain can go in a billion different directions and have interest in almost anything, usually, right?
Right.
Lots of curiosity, lots of ideas, pulling you in different directions. And I think these high achievers have been able to say, you know what, I'm going to curb that just a little bit and try to target my energy and attention to my unique area of talent and interest.
Right, right. So that acknowledgement of a talent or a strength is kind of step one, right?
Yeah.
And choosing to focus on that is not easy.
No.
Choosing to focus on that to the exclusion of other things to some degree, but also choosing to focus on that area of strength or area of talent, area of interest more than the areas that are not strengths is a huge shift that I'm sure you work on with your clients all the time. Right?
Yes.
Focusing
Huge.
more on your strengths and channeling your strengths more than focusing on your challenges is one of the important, kinds of work that we do within ADHD coaching. And it
That's right.
seems that high achievers have kind of already done that to some degree. Not that they're not acutely aware of their challenges, because they are, but
Mm-hmm.
their acceptance of the strength and their ability to focus on the strength and stay there, keep
Mm-hmm.
working in there that's huge.
It's hugely important. And it's something that even though they're highly successful and high achievers, they still need to work on. And like you said, that's one of the things that we work on, because that's what is bringing them to coaching, is that now that strategy isn't working as well as it was when they were younger, or when life was less complex, or when they had the support and structure of family and school sort of getting them through. So
Right.
the other thing that I see is that, and this is more about the external universe, that they need to know that high achievers with ADHD can do well in school. In fact, some of them can excel.
Right.
And so this, I think we just don't simply know enough from the research about what it takes for an ADHD kid with ADHD to do well in school, but some of them are doing it. Unfortunately, mostly this strategy is to just work harder, work longer, work harder, work longer, work harder, do more, stay later. And eventually that strategy starts to fall apart. And that's where I think coaching can help our clients to develop other ways of approaching this issue other than just working harder than everybody else.
Right, right. That's interesting. And I can see that in myself, and I can see that in my clients. Most of my clients will say school was relatively easy for me. And I would say the same thing, except for the organizational piece. The piece that always got me in trouble was the forgotten assignment, or the assignment that was done and wasn't turned in. And any parents that are listening to this, we don't do that on purpose. Absolutely. We don't do the work and then forget to turn it in on purpose. That whole, and then of course, once you get to college and beyond, that whole managing of time thing, I think we're much more on it now, like in most schools, and most parents are much more aware that we need to teach our kids at a younger age how to use a planner and a calendar and all of that. But that's not natural to us. And when I went to college, I had never had a planner before. I had never, that was something that I had to sort of figure out on my own. But that's a very common pattern. And I think a lot of my high achieving clients, the docs, the psychiatrists, the attorneys, the accountants, the entrepreneurs, the people that own their own businesses, liked school to some degree.
That's right.
So that you have that reinforcement too of, being good at something. And
school, for a lot of them, school was their interest.
Yeah.
Or at least part of it. And the other part, if you're really bright, it can be incredibly boring to be in a, traditional classroom. Yeah. So, they knuckled down and they worked harder. It's all about willpower and grit, which is actually not the answer for ADHD at all.
Right.
And so the other thing that you mentioned there, I think, is the role that some of the techniques and support that people are getting, learning to use a planner when you're little instead of when you're 50 for the first time.
Right.
Hugely important. And so one of the other things that I have seen is that the high achievers with ADHD that I work with are actively seeking support and treatment for their ADHD. And that's how they end up with you, or that's how they end up with me, or they're listening to the ADHD Support Talk radio program, or they're out there engaged in helping themselves to get what they need so that they can continue to be high achievers without all the stress.
Right. That's a really good point too. Not being afraid to look for help, not being ashamed. I'm sure you hear this once, one of my clients finds that there's someone that can relate and that they have a whole body of clients that they've worked with who are in similar positions to them. It makes them feel like less of, I had a client recently say, like, maybe I'm not a unicorn after all. I'm like, well, maybe you are, maybe we're all unicorns, but there are lots of us out there who are facing the same struggle. Lots of professionals out there with ADHD who are otherwise, pretty high achieving, but, kind of holding it together by a thread.
Well, and the same thing happened to me this week. I had a young professor call, and she started crying on the phone because she thought she was the only professor with ADHD. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I run a whole group of them. I talk to them all day long. So I can hear, I'm here to tell lawyers and professors and accountants and surgeons and doctors and all those people who are high achievers with ADHD that yes, it does exist. You are not the only one out there, but you are really isolated. And one of the important parts of seeking treatment is to sort of break down the isolation barriers that you've put up, or that the world has put up for you.
Yes. I mean, how many times have clients cry all the time on the phone? I mean, that's part of the job, because this stuff is painful and it's super personal, and there's a lot of history and a lot of, just pain underneath of it. But how many times have you heard, I've been embarrassed to ask for help. I didn't want to let anybody know. And it just feels so good to be able to talk about this stuff with people who get it, or someone who understands, or someone who can relate. I mean, it can be a game changer.
And the other thing I think that's important, and I don't mean to diss on other professionals who are trying to help people with ADHD, because I think their intention is good, but it does take a certain amount of experience with this population to understand how incredibly high achieving they can be, and bright and charismatic and funny. And I mean, it goes on and on.
Right.
and yet have ADHD. I was just talking to one of the most respected ADHD life coaches out there the other week, and we were just having a casual conversation. I said, oh, this attorney called me and she's only been diagnosed last week, but she's a 6th-year associate in her law firm. And this person interrupted me and said, really? They made it through law school?
Wow.
So, I said, oh no, these are people who are professionals in the ADHD world. And if they don't spend a lot of time on a daily basis like we do with these same population of high achievers, then it is hard to believe
Right.
that somebody who is undiagnosed can become a 6th-year law associate. It's very challenging to kind of wrap your mind around that because of this mysterious paradox.
Right.
This same young woman went to her physician, and the physician sent her to a psychologist, and the psychologist said, well, you can't have ADHD
Right.
because you're too successful.
Right.
I mean, imagine how hurtful that is.
And how many times have you heard that story as a coach?
Oh,
Like on a regular basis. I
yeah.
was sent for an evaluation. They said I couldn't have ADHD because I was an MD, or because I've
Right.
gotten this far, or I've been this successful. And, here I am still struggling. So what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think, I love the opportunity to be on your Support Talk Radio, because what the main message I want people to know is that if you're hearing that, then know that that's not true, and
Right.
continue to seek support and the treatment that you need in order to continue to be a high achiever, but to do it in a way that makes you fulfilled and healthy and happy on a daily basis.
Right. And that's what it's all about, right? It's
Yep.
about, your definition of success. And for most of my clients, it's not about like status or money or it's about quality of life. It's about being
Right.
able to be present with who they want to be present,
Mm-hmm.
in the moment. It's having bandwidth and energy and time left over at the end of the day for the things that matter most to them. And
Right.
that's the part that gets lost in the shuffle. Like you said, it's the self-care, especially the long-term self-care. It's
Yeah.
relationships, the connections, the things that you need to do to feed your soul, the things that you need to do to make you happy and feel fulfilled. Achievement and fulfillment are not the same thing. And making the achievement easier so that you don't end your days just done and fried and
Right.
nothing left over, learning how to do things so that you don't have to work quite so hard all the time.
Yep. That's exactly right.
That's huge.
Amen.
Anything else you want to share with the listeners? I think this is such an important message, Casey, and I know it's going to resonate with a lot of our listeners.
Yeah, I think that, going back to the sort of the main takeaway is if you are one of these high achievers with ADHD, knowing that you're not alone, knowing that success, in the way that you just described it, not just this, do I have a degree and am I going to work every day to be a lawyer success, but the fulfillment of the rest of your being kind of success is possible. So one thing that you can look for to kind of say, okay, this is time for me to get some support and get some help through a coach or through some other treatment avenue, is if you're saying, I just need to fill in the blank. So I just need to work harder. I just need to get that one report done. I just need to stay a little later in the office than everybody else. I just need to get up and exercise tomorrow morning, even though I've never been able to do that before. This is an opportunity for you to say, okay, get rid of that because it doesn't really work, and talk with somebody who knows how to help you craft a system of supports and habits and mindsets that are going to get you to actually do those things that you want to do.
I love it. I love it. It's a really good message. It's a really good message. So tell our listeners again how they can learn more about you, what you do.
So I'm at dixonlifecoaching.com. That's DIXON lifecoaching.com. And on there you can find all about what I do and all about me. I do run an ongoing group coaching program for lawyers. Okay. So, and I have another one that's for professors with ADHD. So they'll be in there with their own professional cohort. And that's one of the things that I think can be really eye-opening and supportive. And also they can share strategies that work for them with each other. Yes. And then I have a Live Well program, which is a 6-week group coaching workshop that's open to all professionals with ADHD. and of course, individual coaching. So that's what I have to offer. There's also a bunch of articles and links to podcasts and other things like that on the website. So if you want to contact me, you can do it through there. I do respond to people who use my contact form. So yeah, just let me know.
Awesome. Great resources and great information. Thank you so much for being here today, Casey. I've really enjoyed it. I think, the message and the information that you shared today is really going to help a lot of people.
Thanks, Lynn. It was super fun.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will catch you next time on ADHD Support Talk Radio. If you want to ask questions, continue the conversation, please visit our Facebook group, ADHD Support Talk Community. Thanks so much.